If the spirit within Robbie Reyes isn't the spirit of vengeance, what is it? Welcome to the Complete Story Series, where I hop into a demon-controlled car and I drive into battle before finding your favorite trade paperbacks and single issues and breaking them down into digestible bites. Then I read it dramatically back to you. All alterations of the panel's text and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. Damn it, I turned into Ghost Rider again. At the end of her last chapter, Robbie Reyes was given a chance to come back to life with the help of the spirit named Eli. Robbie was given many abilities and he found himself in a fight with a pill manufacturing man going by the name of Dr. Calvin Zabo, aka Mr. Hyde. At the end of their battle, Robbie managed to defeat Zabo and finally accepted the power that Eli had given him. And then late one night, Robbie sits with two other street racers as Robbie begins to count his winnings from that evening. Eli says, "You are grossly misusing our powers. You should be punishing the night scum, not sitting idly by like this." The next morning, the news reports of the battle now currently known as the Urban Super Battle at Hill Rock Heights, and how the fight involved escaped fugitive Dr. Calvin Zabo. The reporter on scene reports that there have been many eyewitnesses to that battle, and one of the children took a photo of something interesting. The image on the child's phone shows that of Robbie in his car blazing down the street. While the news continues, a man sits in a bar watching, and he sees the image of Robbie and Eli. He pays his bar tab, and he leaves on his motorcycle. Over at Lincoln High, though, Robbie attends class like normal, but after school, his teacher, Mr. Wakeford, mentions that it's nice to see that him and Guerrero are now on civil terms. While that seems to be the case, as Robbie leaves, Guerrero turns to his crew. They're all still recovering from what happened in that battle with Robbie, but they're about to be ready, and tonight's the night. Later, Robbie and his brother Gabe visit one of Gabe's counselors, Dr. DaCosta, and she mentions how Gabe has vastly improved lately. It must be all of the time that Robbie is spending with him. Gabe has seen increased mental and physical stimulation, and shown amazing improvement in his motor skills and communication, so whatever Robbie is doing, he has to make sure he doesn't stop. As the night goes on, Robbie and Gabe head home for dinner, and once Gabe is put to bed, Eli says, "We need to go out and crack down on those who need punishment." But instead, all Robbie wants to do is sit and count his street race money. "You've got a duty. With great power comes great." But Robbie stops him. He knows all about great responsibility. He's had it as long as he can remember, and he has no intention of becoming a vigilante. Eli tells him that he could use his power to change lives for the better. Well, Robbie considers that to be exactly what he's doing for Gabe right now. The next night, Robbie goes back to win more money from the street races, and over in Skid Row, a homeless man meets up with a group of other homeless men to show off the cool gun that he found after that fight at Hill Rock Heights. But it's not the only thing that he found. He also found a bag of pills, and they could probably make these guys a ton of money. As all of the homeless men begin to go to sleep, one of the homeless men's dog finds the bag and starts to eat the pills. But before he can stop his dog from eating more, the dog grows into one of the beasts that the pill creates. The dog attacks its owner and the nearby homeless, but that's when the man takes out his gun and begins firing on the dog. He manages to stop the dog, but as the rest of the homeless men lay lifeless, all of the nearby animals come to eat some of the pills that have been thrown around. Elsewhere, Guerrero and his crew are up to no good. The next day, Robbie runs a few errands. When on his way, he asks Eli why he's been so quiet lately. Eli tells him, "I don't care about street races. You've been wasting both of our time and completely misusing the power that I gave you." Before he could continue though, Robbie's phone goes off, and it rings with another offer for a race over in Phoenix for a total of $5 grand. Robbie tells him that he'll be there, and then after the call, he tells Eli that $5 grand for a day's work isn't too bad. Eli tells him, "We have more pressing matters. You're wasting time. You got your revenge on Guerrero, but I still have some of my bullies to beat down." Robbie mentions that he told him to trust him, and he appreciates being brought back to life, but he's starting to think that his well-being isn't exactly Eli's priority. 5 hours later, over in Arizona, the man from the bar overhears an argument involving Robbie knocking a biker's bike over. The biker tries to start a fight, but Robbie tells the man that he's sorry, he doesn't want any trouble. And Eli says, "How disappointing." But then Robbie turns around and headbutts the biker in the chin, and then turns to punch another man with him. And Eli tells him, "That's right, get it all out." And Robbie jumps on the biker and starts to beat him. After being bloodied from the blood of the biker, Robbie realizes what he's doing and he jumps in his car and he leaves. The man on the motorcycle watches and starts his bike as Robbie drives off. That day at school though, Guerrero and his crew seem to have magically gotten better, as they are now all out of their bandages and braces rather quickly. As Mr. Wakeford sits at home, the news comes on again talking about a recent string of robberies involving medical facilities. More accounts have been added to the already high number of robberies, and the robbers are leaving some sort of call sign tagging the buildings with the Blue Crew in blue spray paint. As Mr. Wakeford sits there, he remembers Guerrero and his crew carrying around blue spray cans. But that night over in Phoenix, Arizona, Robbie has just won his race, and the man that he beat says that their thing isn't done just yet. The man gives him an address and he tells him, show up here for double or nothing. You can either be a man or you can chicken out, Robbie. Robbie, of course, agrees, and the next night, Robbie receives a call from Dr. DaCosta asking him if he'd like a new medication for Gabe that might be able to help with his recent improvements. Except that the cost is really expensive. Robbie tells her yes, he's definitely interested in continuing Gabe's improvements. As Robbie sits at the table trying to figure out how to get that money, Eli tells him, actually, that race can fix that. All you need to do is let me have full control. I'll win that race for them. Robbie tells Eli that he's a good enough racer without him. He's got this. Later, Robbie lines up for that street race and the drivers take off. He begins to pull ahead of the group, but in front of him appears one of the deformed animals that ate the pills. Robbie stops and more of the animals begin to tear apart the car, trying to get at Robbie. And Robbie tells Eli he could really use his help right now, but Eli is being quiet and ignoring the situation until suddenly Eli emerges and he begins to rip through the beast with his chains. Then he rescues Robbie. Later, Robbie did lose the race and he pays the man, but in the back of Robbie's head, Eli tells him, you shouldn't have given him the money. Those monsters attacked us. Robbie starts to sulk about how he let Gabe down, but Eli tells him, we can go get that money back. Gabe's doing so much better. Why ruin it, Robbie? Robbie tells him he's right, and he takes off in a fiery trail down the highway. Robbie catches up to the man and he begins to ram into his car until the man swerves off the road driving into the barrier. Robbie tells Eli, no, this isn't what was supposed to happen, but Robbie jumps out of the car to get the man out of his burning vehicle. But as Robbie tries to get the man to wake up, Eli tells Robbie, just take the money and leave. But as Robbie reaches down for the money, he hears a voice call out to him and he turns and he sees a man with a flaming skull on a motorcycle. Who are you? And what the hell do you think you're doing? Robbie asks, who is that guy? And Eli tells him, I ain't got no clue, but I'm pretty sure this guy means business. Let me handle this. So Eli gets up and he jumps at the man, who is Johnny Blaze, and he starts to try and tackle him. But Johnny grabs Eli by the neck and he slams him down. Johnny tells Eli, you can't keep anything from me. I can see right through your souls. Yours is a piece of work, Eli Morrow. Murderous, sadistic, unrepentant Satanist. I have seen the foulest of souls, mortal and immortal alike, but nothing like yours, Morrow. Johnny then holds Eli by the neck, and Eli manages to reach back and grab a chain, and he begins to swing it at Johnny. But Johnny grabs him again, slams him back down, and he notices Eli's body starting to sink through the ground. As he turns around, he notices the chain around his leg, and then Eli takes off in the car, causing the chain to grip around Johnny's leg and fling him off the side. He quickly jumps onto his bike and he chases after Eli, and when he gets close, he throws his chain onto the back of the car. But as Johnny jumps onto the roof of the car, Eli starts to float up through the roof, and he kicks Johnny off, and then he takes off again. Inside of the car, Robbie says, that guy may have done something to us, Eli. I'm feeling a bit weak. And to make matters worse, the next day at gym, Robbie is still feeling the effects of the fight with Johnny, and he's having a hard time keeping himself together. He goes to take a shot, and Guerrero jumps up with him, hits the ball from Robbie, and then knocks it back into Robbie's face. Except Robbie isn't getting up. The coach takes Robbie to the nurse's office, and as the nurse begins to let him rest, Robbie's eyes open. The nurse tells him he's gonna need an hour or so, but it's not Robbie who's awake. It's Eli controlling Robbie's body without being Ghost Rider. Robbie makes his way back home singing, I'm going to kill you in Spanish. And as he gets out of the car, he heads into the house. He starts to go through the drawers until he finds a hammer, and then he heads to Gabe's room. Gabe sees Robbie and he welcomes him home, but Eli tells him, quiet with all of that racket already. And then he starts to knock on the floor with the hammer, asking, where did I put it? Where did I put it? And then he realizes it's under Gabe's bed. He moves Gabe and he flips over the bed, knocking Gabe's chair over. Gabe tries to tell him, Robbie, you knocked my chair over. But Eli kneels down and starts to pick away at the floor. Finally, Eli finds a box with the names in it, and he starts to leave. Gabe calls out for Robbie to wait, but Eli just ignores him and leaves to the other room. Gabe starts to crawl out of his room, asking Robbie, aren't you hungry? And Eli remains silent and turns off the lights, leaving Gabe on the middle of the floor. Elsewhere, Johnny begins to do some web searches for Eli Morrow, and it turns out that this man was a devil worshiper who's killed 37 people and suspected of 15 more murders. Over in West Hollywood, Eli walks straight into a club and breaks a bottle over a bouncer's head. He then takes the bottle to one of the other men inside, telling him, long time no see, Andre! Man, you got pretty fat. Where's Ivanov? Tell him Eli Morrow's back in town looking for payback. Back at home, Gabe tells his toy Ninja Wolf not to worry. Robbie will come back and play with them because Robbie's the best brother in the whole world. And he knows Ninja Wolf. He's hungry too. He crawls through the kitchen and he opens up the fridge, but he can't reach any real food. So he opens up the bottom shelf and begins to eat whatever he can get his hands on. Over on the highway, Johnny starts driving through traffic thinking, here I am again, trying to track down another one. I wouldn't call him a Ghost Rider, but whatever's inside of Robbie Reyes is an entirely different beast. The spirit of Eli Morrow is not here to avenge the innocent. He's the spirit of a mass murdering criminal who escaped eternal damnation through satanic rituals. That's when Johnny senses Eli killing someone, and he whips around in flames, and he makes his way to where Eli is. In downtown Los Angeles, Guerrero welcomes the next member of the Blue Crew, and he stands before Zabo and the rest of the soldiers. Zabo tells everyone that their urban alliance will be turned against the gangs who are not a part of them, and they will rule this town. The Eastern Territory gangs are not wise enough to join up, so we're going to be eradicating them. Meanwhile, with the Russian mafia over on the Eastern Territory, Ivanov's door is knocked on, and one of the guards looks at the peephole, and Eli smiles, asking, "Did you miss me?" But before the man can say it's Eli, Eli bursts through the doors on fire. The guards try to move Ivanov away, but on the other side, Johnny comes riding in on his bike. Eli tells Bones that you're getting on my last nerve, and Johnny remains silent and lunges at him. Eli begins to laugh while his car rams through the wall, running Johnny over, and then with his chains, he begins to slam Johnny deeper and deeper into the ground. Eli looks down, telling him, "I expected more." But then he stops and asks, "What are you doing? I can't look away." Johnny begins to get up, telling him, "It's the penance stare, and you can't withstand its power, Eli Morrow." Soon Eli begins to scream out in pain as his chains begin to wrap around him. And then while the dust is settling, Guerrero and his men charge in and grab Ivanov. Guerrero then throws him into a car and begins to drive off, but then he begins to ask, what is with all of the smoke? Did the cook set the kitchen on fire? Back inside of the building, Robbie tells the man thank you, now that he is in control of his body again, thanks to Johnny's penance stare. And Johnny tells him, "You can just call me Johnny. There's a lot of evil inside of you, so I think we're gonna need to talk." Johnny explains what Ghost Riders are, and that Eli's spirit is the spirit of a serial killer and a Satanist, which is why they seem to have similar powers. But what he needs to do right now is learn how to coexist with Eli's spirit. If not, Eli will take over again and he will hurt the ones closest to him. That's when Robbie realizes that Gabe is home alone, and he tells Johnny that he needs to go. They'll talk more about it later. But before leaving, Guerrero sees the flaming person that he fought before, and he realizes that it was actually Robbie. Robbie rushes home to find Gabe huddled on the floor of the kitchen, and he picks him up. Gabe tells him, "I was so hungry, Robbie. You left me alone in the dark." Robbie sets Gabe down in his chair and he tells him he's so sorry. He didn't mean to. It was all an accident. But Gabe stays silent. Over in Zabo's warehouse, Zabo tells Ivanov that they have a common enemy right now. That's Ghost Rider. But he can offer him protection. Ivanov begins to laugh, telling him, "There's nothing you can do." But Zabo pulls out a blue pill and tells him, "Just watch." All of the soldiers next to him begin to swallow the pill, and they all transform into larger hulking creatures, and they start to beat on a car, crushing it. The next day at school, Guerrero begins to follow Robbie into the halls, telling him, "I know who you are." Robbie tries to say that he doesn't know what he's talking about, but Guerrero punches Robbie and he says, "I know you're the Ghost Rider." As Robbie gets a hit and the rest of Guerrero's men jump in to beat him down, and that's when Eli says it, "Lose your mind, kid." Eli takes over and he jumps back up and he kicks one of the thugs in the legs. Then Guerrero turns and pulls out a knife and starts swinging, but Eli catches the blade in his hand as Guerrero stabs through it. He then grabs Guerrero by the arm and he starts to twist it and crush it. As Guerrero screams out in pain, Eli reaches out with his other hand and he slams Guerrero down by the face and begins to crush him again. But before he can do any real damage, one of the other thugs runs up and breaks a bat over the back of Eli's head. Guerrero's crew begin to pick him up, and as the police begin to arrive, Eli sneaks off before anyone has a chance to stop him, and he heads home. Later that night, while Eli begins to patch himself up, he gets a call from Ivanov telling him, "Eli, or whoever you are, we should meet up and have a chat. I have an interesting proposition for you." Eli tells him, "No problem, I'll be there. Just don't run away this time." But as Eli is getting ready to leave, there's a knock at the door. When Eli answers it, it's his teacher telling him he handled everything in school for him, stating that he fought in self-defense. The reason he's here is because of Gabe. He picked up Gabe for Robbie, but Gabe seemed like he didn't want to come home. Is there anything going on that Mr. Wakeford should know about? Eli says, "Actually, there is something you can help me with, so hang on a moment." He walks back and he grabs a hammer and he begins to walk back over to Mr. Wakeford. Robbie tells him no, just as Eli is swinging with the hammer, but before he can connect a hit, his other arm reaches out and punches him instead. Eli tells Robbie to let go of his arm, and Robbie shouts for Mr. Wakeford to leave and never come back. But as Mr. Wakeford starts to get back up, Eli jumps in the car and leaves. He drives out to the bridge that Ivanov told him to come to, and he steps out stating, "I'm surprised you kept your word and showed up." Ivanov tells him that he doesn't hide from Satanist perverts. And Eli jumps on Ivanov and pulls out a knife. He starts trying to swing down, but Robbie is inside of him, stopping him from killing Ivanov. Before Eli can do anything else, Guerrero comes in from a nearby building, swinging down on Eli. He gets knocked away, but as Guerrero comes to stomp on his head, he gets back up, and he changes into his Ghost Rider form, launching Guerrero away. Guerrero starts to charge back, but Eli trips him over the side of the bridge and tells him, "Good riddance!" Robbie screams out, telling Eli, "I won't give in, not this time." And he begins to gain control of the Ghost Rider body, quickly throwing the chains down, grabbing Guerrero's leg instead of killing him, and flinging him back up onto the bridge. As Robbie checks on Guerrero, the rest of the Blue crew jump out and they start ganging up on Robbie, beating him with anything that they can grab. The beatings continue until the two of them fire rockets at Robbie, but before they can hit him, Johnny appears out of nowhere, blocking the explosions, asking, "You need a hand?" Robbie starts to get back up and Johnny tells him, "Remember, harness your rage and coexist with your demon, and then you can unleash the unrelenting wrath of vengeance, like a Ghost Rider." Robbie and Johnny start to ride through the crowd, swinging chains, while Ivanov begins to escape, but once it's done, Robbie and Johnny stand over the bodies of the entire Blue crew. The next morning, Johnny shakes Robbie's hands and tells him, "If there's anything you need, just call upon any of the Ghost Riders. For better or for worse, you're a part of the family now, Robbie Reyes. You're a Ghost Rider." And that is the conclusion to the second arc in the Robbie Reyes storyline. Now, the next arc is going to further explore who is Eli Morrow. And trust me, it's really interesting to find that stuff out. We're going to be getting into it real soon. Let me know in the comments down below how you feel about this Ghost Rider being in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show. And I'll see you next time right here. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Comicstorian and Instagram at Comicstorian. And I already said I'll see you here next time. Well, I'll see you here next time and next time and next time.